Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 42. We are back again and we have another fantastic guest this week to continue our long run of fantastic guests. First of all, we will welcome the usual suspects, Mr. Peter Lant. Do you want to say hello?
Hello, how are we doing? Nobody answers.
He's always waiting for an answer. He never gets a response. Mr. Paul Bassett, how are you doing?
Good afternoon, everyone.
I think Paul's said he's just woken up from an afternoon nap.
I seem to always be tired whenever we're either not having any sleep. I don't know what it is about Thursdays.
Okay.
The week catches up with me.
It's exciting. It's exciting. It's podcasting.
I know.
And what I will do a very quick, a few things I need to tell you about, and then I will introduce you to our guest for this week. So please, guys, make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, share, leave a review if you can, anywhere that you listen to this podcast. We are everywhere, as you know. We are on iTunes, we are on YouTube, we are on Spotify, we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of those places. And what you can also do now is to stay more in touch with us and to interact with us more freely. You can join or request to join the Health Oddity Facebook group. If you just go into groups on Facebook and search Health Oddity and then go in there, then we will approve you to come in and you can be part of the conversation. We will be doing live Q&As. We will be having some of our guests in there as well. And you can just interact with us about all things health and fitness. So our guest today, I have known for, actually, I think it came up on my memories recently. It was probably 6 or 7 years ago, I think, maybe even more. Our guest today, Mr. Chris Zaremba, came in and did a talk at Unique Results in Chelmsford on one of our kind of fitness days. And he's got a fantastic story. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm holding up his new book, which I started reading yesterday, which is Fat to Fit at 50. And Chris is going to tell us all about his story, and we're going to kind of learn about the journey that he's been on. So first of all, if you'd like to say hello, Chris.
Hi, James, and hi, guys. And thank you very much for having me on the podcast today.
Excellent. Well, what we'll do, Chris, I've just held up your book, Fat to Fit at 50, which kind of gives a broad nod to what we're going to be talking about today and the kind of story that you're going to be talking to us about today. But if you'd like to maybe, in your own words, just tell us about yourself, about your story, about your life, and about kind of what's brought you to this point today. And we can ask questions and learn more as we go, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, James. Sure, absolutely. So, I called the book Fat to Fit at 50 because that, in a few words, really summarizes my own fitness journey. And a few people have been nagging me saying, Chris, your fitness journey has been so interesting, so remarkable. You should write it. I've been wanting to write it ever since I was about 53 or 54, I guess. So that was 10 years ago. But I really needed the lockdown to come to give me the time. So if you've got one thing we can thank the virus for, it's given me time to sit at home and do naff all other than write a book. So I started writing it at the beginning of the first lockdown, and I finished writing it about a month ago. So, and got it published in the intervening couple of weeks. So, but the title of the book really describes my journey, because when I was 50, which is now, well, believe it or not, 14 years ago, I was obese, severely obese. I was 18.5 stone, which is off the top of the scale if you're looking at BMI, because I'm 5'10", and that knocks me right out about 38 or 39 on the BMI scale. Although, as we all know, that's not the world's best measure of fitness, but it is a clue anyway. I can tell you it wasn't all muscle, that's for certain. And I was 18.5 stone, and I had been told by 2 doctors in rapid succession within 2 weeks, actually, that I needed to lose some weight fairly urgently and increase my fitness levels. because my GP said that didn't think I'd be very likely to see her in fact, hers, in 10 years' time. She'd noticed that my fitness levels, or indeed all the measurements she'd taken of me, like blood pressure, like blood sugar, blood glucose, and so on, all of the measurements were getting worse year on year on year whenever we had reason to have some kind of check up at my GP. And she said, Chris, you're just getting worse and worse and worse. You need to get a hold of this. You're now 50. I really want to see you in 10 years' time. And it's in your hands, Chris, to do this. The GP offered to help by prescribing some drugs that would help in terms of controlling my appetite and starting to help me to eat less. But I decided I'd rather have a go of it on my own and see what I could do. And really, that was one kick up the backside. And the other kick up the backside came about 2 weeks later, because I have a hobby, I did until that time, of flying small planes, not big ones, only small. I've got a private pilot's license, 4-seaters with a single whizzy thing going around at the front. And
is that a technical term? The single whizzy thing going around?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, as opposed to the four big noisy things on the wings that the big planes have. Yeah, which is a little whizzy thing on the front. And when you have a private pilot's license, you've got to have an annual medical. And when you get to 50, it becomes a bit more stringent. And when I went for my medical, the medical examiner said that I wasn't fit enough to fly a plane, so as a pilot. So he had my flying license taken away from me, which is probably a good thing anyway, because it was costing me a bloody fortune renting planes here, there, and everywhere to go everywhere. So it was probably quite a benefit, really. But no, I was quite upset because within 2 weeks I'd have my GP saying that she'd probably never see me when I got to 60 because I'd probably be dead. And I had one of my best hobbies taken away from me as well, both for the same reason. And that reason was that I was overweight, or to be more precise, I was over fat, and I was underfit. So the detail of the doctor's readings, I haven't got the numbers now, but basically I was pre-diabetic. I was well on my way to having diabetes. My lousy cholesterol was too high. My good cholesterol was too low. My aerobic capacity was nothing. I don't think I could run 5 yards, and I wouldn't even do that unless I was really desperate to catch that bus. So I had to turn around 50 years of being what had been actually a total and utter layabout into something approaching being fit. So the first 50 years of my life, I'm not one of these guys who's been fit all their lives. I absolutely hated sport at school. Anything involving PT or games, I tried to find a way of getting out of, and usually managed to. Which, if you read the book, the first couple of chapters are all about how I managed to find devious ways to extricate from myself from playing rugby or athletics or cricket or anything like that. And so by the time I got to about 30, I started discovering the joys of drink, and managed to get a few pints inside me. I'm actually an early member of CAMRA, being a member of the campaign for Real Ale, which I know you are as well, James, because we have stumbled over each other, not only in gyms, but also at the Chelmsford Good Beer Festival, haven't we? So
we have indeed, yeah. I think Pete might have had a question. Pete, did you want to ask something to...
Yeah, no, it's all right. I thought Jim was tailing off there, so I was going to ask you a question, but carry on.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So I've been totally unfit for the first 50 years of my life, and then I decided to do something about it, because I didn't really fancy pegging out before I was 60, and I didn't really fancy not being able to fly again. So I did turn that around. I got myself a lot healthier, a lot fitter. My flying license is now back. So I'm back to being poor again now, because I haven't got any money now, because I'm busy renting planes here, there, and everywhere. And all my indicators are fine. I've got, according to the GP, I've now got the blood pressure of a 35-year-old. And I don't know if he wants it back or not at some stage, but that's what I've got. And, my blood sugars no longer indicate I'm pre-diabetic or anywhere close, which is very good.
So can I ask Chris, what was when these things, because this is a great story, and it's I think from probably Peter and Paul will say as well, it's a very common story nowadays, isn't it? To get to that stage in life and to have something like this happen. Obviously, what's not common is kind of what you've gone on to do sort of subsequently after having this news. What was the first thing that you did? What was the first? You said you were offered like a medical, a kind of pharmaceutical intervention, to give you some tablets to make some difference, but you decided to try and go your own way and do it yourself. What was the first thing that you decided? What was that kind of first step, if you like, when you decided, right, I'm going to do something about this?
Well, I probably should have spoken to a professional or a personal trainer or somebody that could give me some guidance, but I didn't, because I thought I could have a go at this myself. I realised I had to change my life. I made a massive investment in a tiny little notebook. I don't mean a laptop type notebook. I mean a physical spiral bound notebook. And I started logging the calories that I ate, because I knew that calories were bad. Or I knew that too many calories were probably not what I wanted. So I set myself an arbitrary total of 1,600 calories a day, and kept to that for about 2 years. And at the same time, I decided to walk a bit more and do a bit more exercise generally. And the weight just came off me quite quickly. There was a gym right next door to where I worked. So I looked into the gym and I thought, don't fancy this much. Everybody in the gym was at least half my age and at least twice as fit as I was. And they were still in the gym. They were still working out. They still wanted to get even fitter. And everybody in there was miles fitter than me anyway. So I felt a little bit gym intimidated, should we say. But I kind of stuck with it. Didn't fancy the exercise classes. I looked in the exercise classes. Everybody there was way, way fitter than me, and probably a third of my age, less than half, if not half my age. And then I saw the cardio area. Didn't fancy the running machine much. But then someone pointed out the cross trainer to me, and I just discovered the cross trainer actually had some benefits to it. So, like, for example, that I could watch TV while doing it. That was quite good. And there were actually a couple of cross trainers with sweaty blokes on there who actually didn't look that different to me. They were younger, but they definitely needed to lose some weight or some body fat. So I fell in love with the cross trainer, and from that day onwards, I spent 40 minutes every morning before going to work in the gym on the cross trainer. I mean, eventually I moved to doing some running, and eventually I moved out of the gym and started running outdoors, but that's several years later. But so I was on the cross trainer every day, boosting my exercise, and I was watching what I was eating. Wasn't following anything strict. I knew nothing about macronutrients. I knew nothing about the heart rate zones or anything like that. All I did was chuck myself on the cross trainer for 40 minutes a day. I knew that it was good to walk, so I walked a bit more. I walked half a mile to the station at this end, because I commuted up to London in those days. So rather than getting a lift, I walked to the station and I walked back home again. So that was a bit of exercise. So I just found ways of getting exercise into my life that help, or getting movement rather than exercise, getting movement into my life. Chucking that 40 minutes worth of cross trainer, which I did for a decade or more, 40 minutes of cross trainer every day. Still do it a couple of times a week. I usually go running these days, but still do 40 minutes of cross trainer sometimes. And that really did the trick for me, and keeping a tab of 1,600 calories a day. Things are so much easier these days. You've got stuff like MyFitnessPal, for example, so you don't need to work out the calories and things by buying little books. In those days, you could get little booklets, news agents told you how many calories there were in things, because there weren't nutrition labels back 14 years ago. The level of information we have on a nutrition label now, and the data that you keep in MyFitnessPal just wasn't available 14 years ago. People today have it so easy, they really do.
So I mean, yeah, sorry, go on, Pete.
Well, I've got a quick observation first. Obviously taking up flying again, because if you watch on YouTube, there's got a bookcase in the back, because we're on Zoom and you've got to have a bookcase in the background when you're being interviewed, and you could only afford the A and the Z of the alphabet, couldn't you? You couldn't afford the rest, so no, you've taken up flying again.
Yeah, the A to Z is for my wife, because when she married me, she stopped being an Ashmore and started being a Zaremba.
Oh, so well, there you go.
So my wife went from A to Z.
Yeah, and it's your well, that's good, that. Anyway, I was going to just go back a step a little bit, because in my experience, I've spoken to people who are like, they're at a certain age, not necessarily got to 50 yet, maybe it's 40, 35, something like that, and they're overweight, obese, and they're like, yeah, but whenever I go to the doctor, my blood pressure's fine, I'm not pre-diabetic, everything, all the markers are fine. And it's like, that's cool. So what I want to know with you is, was it always okay? And then when the closer you got towards 50, is that when it started to, like you said, every year when you went to see the doctor, things got worse and worse and worse every single year? Was it always like that? Or did it start at 40, 45? Just for those people who are saying everything's all right now, it's like, if you're obese, the chances are at some point it's all going to start going in the wrong direction, isn't it? Absolutely,
yeah. I think it probably started for me around about the age of sort of 15, 16, 17 when I started going into pubs, and then going into pubs legally at 18. And it probably started from that point onwards. And when I started living on my own, moved out from my mum's house, I became a real regular at local fish and chip shop and the local pizza place. And I used to pick up fish and chips most evenings on the way to from the station back to home. And that wasn't to replace dinner. That was like an intermediate snack. You know, that was before dinner. And I was a chocoholic. Still enjoyed chocolate a lot, but I was not to the extent I used to then. So I used to have at least 2 Mars bar equivalents on the journey to work. So I get a train from my local station, and I buy a Mars. I call it Mars bar equivalent because it could be a Kit Kat, it could be a Topic or a Bounty, but something like a Mars bar. So I buy a Mars bar equivalent at the railway station, sit on the train, read the paper, because we did that in those days. Didn't have mobile phones in those days. And I got to the London terminus, and I had a 10-minute tube ride to the office, which I then changed to a walk when I started getting fitter. But then that was a good reason to walk past another tobacconist and other news agents. At least I didn't smoke, but I could pop in and get another Mars bar equivalent for the next bit of the journey to the office, and possibly the same on the way home.
Were you surrounded by other people doing similar things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, although most people I was surrounded by had similar interests to myself, and I didn't have a sporty set of friends. I mean, I'm an only child, so there was no need to be sporty, to have fights over toys in our household. And I didn't have sporty parents either. I don't think I saw either my mum or my dad ever run, ever. I mean, my dad died when he was 52. My mum died when she was 71. And neither of them were particularly healthy. They weren't obese, but they weren't exactly fit either. And I don't have traditions of being in a sporty background other than at school.
So what I really like... Oh, sorry, Paul, go on.
I was about to say, because so you get this diagnosis, this kind of set of predictions from your doctor, and obviously you've had your passion taken away from you, and that happens day in, day out to many people. I mean, I speak to people on the phone who are looking to make a change, and I'll obviously put people through my programs, but it's one thing to be told it, but it's another thing to actually run with that and actually do something about it. Because as a question I sometimes ask clients, particularly ones who are really struggling to be consistent, it's like, what has to happen in your life in order for you to really make this change? You know, does it have to be the heart attack? Does it have to be the type 2 diabetes? Does it have to be something much more significant before you actually make a decision to change? But you made a decision. You ate 1,600 calories for 2 years. You were using the cross trainer. You took control yourself so you had a lot of internal accountability. What made you make that decision?
I mean, it was the kick up the backside from the 2 doctors. I mean, the fact that the words like pre-diabetic and words like metabolic syndrome diseases such as heart disease, those, which I remember what the doctor said. I mean, those are phrases to chill you to the bone if you're not used to hearing them.
So why did they chill you? Because they don't chill some people.
Right. They certainly chilled me, and anybody who comes to see me now as a client, I persuade them that they should be chilling them as well. So it's something that I thought I would not like. It was only actually tough. Maybe this helps answer the question. It was only really tough for the first couple of months, because after the first 2 months, I got to something, and it's in chapter 3 when you get there, James. Okay. That's something I call my magic moment, and that's a really, really fundamental time of my life. Obviously, deciding to take up a fitness-focused lifestyle, or try to at least increase my fitness levels and reduce my fatness levels, that was an important moment. But the magic moment was really, really significant. The magic moment occurred about 2 months after the doctor's warning, 2 months after I'd chosen this arbitrary figure of 1,600 calories and tried to stick to it, and 2 months after I'd started going to cross trainer 5 days a week before going into the office. And the magic moment was one day I couldn't go to the office, which means I couldn't go to the gym, which is by the office, which means I couldn't do my morning cardio, I couldn't do my morning cross trainer, because I had to go on a business trip. I had to go to Leeds or something on a business trip. And I found myself thinking, well, now, if I can't do the gym, I can't do the cardio there, where can I do it? And I thought, are there any other gyms? I thought, no. And then I thought, oh, it's a shame, I can't do my cardio today. And then I literally stopped in my tracks, because I suddenly realized that I was actually trying to find a way of getting it in. I was trying to find a way of doing the cardio. Until that point, I would have thought I would be looking for an excuse not to do it. But I wasn't. I was trying to find a way of doing it. So, I mean, from that, I've developed one of my phrases, which is, if there's something you really want to do, you'll find a way of doing it, whatever the circumstances. And if there's something you really don't want to do, you'll find an excuse not to do it. And up until that time, I always thought I would find an excuse not to do my morning on the crossfit, not to do some exercise first thing in the morning. But in fact, I was upset that I couldn't do it. And in fact, I did something else instead. I ran to the station, and I didn't think I could run that far, but I did. So I did that instead. But that was a magic moment, because that made me realize I wasn't doing this anymore because the doctor told me to do it. Wasn't doing it to get my flying license back. I was doing it because I actually enjoyed it. I actually wanted to do it. I mean, contributing to the enjoyment and the wanting to do it was the fact that I'd recently invested in some body analysis scales, some body fat measurement scales that tells you what your body fat percentage is and so on. I mean, we all use them. And I was keeping the track because I was used to keeping logs of things. So I've become Excel's probably my best friend. So I started writing down on an Excel sheet what my daily weight was, what my body fat percentage was, and multiplying the two together, seeing how much fat I had and seeing what my hydration level was and muscle. I didn't know what most of the terms meant in those days, but I knew that body fat percentage was something I wanted to see coming down, and I knew that weight was something I wanted to see coming down, and that was an extra boost as well. So the fact that I was actually enjoying what I was doing, and that if I could add to that, the looking at the track record I'm doing, because another one I was saying is what gets written gets done, and if it can be measured, it can be improved. If you've got my book there, James, go to the very back and look at Appendix Z, will you? Okay, so then you can tell the world what is in Appendix Z at the back of my book.
Appendix Z, right?
Yeah.
Tell us who done it though.
Oh, okay. Appendix Z. Yeah. I'm going right to the back. Yeah, Zaremba's quotes.
Yeah. So all these things, like if it can be measured, it can be improved. If it's written, it gets done, and things like if there's something you really want to do, you'll find a way of doing it. If there's something you really don't want to do, you find an excuse. They're all part of my library of quotes that I
like this one. This is very similar. We had Josh Hillis on the podcast, who wrote the book Lean and Strong, who's kind of into food habits and psychology and things. And one you've written here is bored or depressed, ? Calories for comfort are not the solution, and food is not a hug. So it's about, he talks a lot about differentiating between hunger and, eating for, emotional reasons and stress and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
no, that's great.
Yeah, calories for comfort. Yes, that's one of the things one of the reasons why we're in such an obesogenic environment in the Western world is that people tend to follow their instincts and eat too many calories. Well, that's not what we're talking about at the moment, but yeah. That magic moment when I discovered that I was really enjoying what I was doing, rather than doing that, from that point onwards, my life changed totally, and I decided to make fitness my career. I was able to take early retirement from my office job. I spent longer down the gym. I got introduced into the weights area of the gym, which is another interesting story, because in fact what I discovered I was doing was I was losing weight, but I was losing weight. I wasn't losing body fat, I was losing weight. My body fat percentage wasn't really changing. My overall weight was coming down, but the body fat percentage wasn't changing, which, as you gentlemen know, means that I'm losing fat, but I'm also losing muscle as well. So it was when that was brought to my attention by a personal trainer who's possibly one of the most famous personal trainers in the world, called Rob Riches in California, where I happened to be at the time. He was the one who pointed that out to me. And he said, it's great that you've lost, well, by that stage I lost about 50 or 60 pounds. It's great you've lost that weight, but you're going to become a weakling as you get older. You're going to become frail. You're not doing this to become frail, are you? In your 60s and your 70s and your 80s, are you? You still want to have some strength. So you've got to, when you lose weight, you are going to lose weight. You normally pretty much pro rata between body fat and muscle / water. And what you need to do is you need to eat more in a more targeted way, and you need to do some weight training to add the muscle back that you've lost during the weight loss program. So that's when I started falling in love with the gym, and that was a whole new story.
I suppose that's one of the things that one of the first things that people often do when they try and lose weight is they go for go for a run. It's a low barrier entry way of doing things. But I suppose as you get better at running, you become more efficient. As you become lighter, the forces on your body reduce, and so therefore you've got less progressive overload. Obviously, you can run faster and things like that. But you get to that point where you're no longer making the changes that most people want, which is, I want to get toned, I want to get stronger, I want to get leaner. And that's, I suppose, where strength training came in for you. Did you start?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of my constant bugbears, in fact, that most people of my age, which is about 50 plus or now 60 plus, if they do turn to fitness like I do, they tend to do what I did, which is to make the mistake of not thinking about adding muscle back. They might take up running, they might decide to go and train for London Marathon, for example, or they might enter a triathlon, go down that route. But all of those routes are not ways that you build muscle. They're great cardiovascular. You'll lose weight, but you won't build strength. You certainly won't build upper body strength from any of those
I suppose you've got to choose the tool for the job. You know, if you want to lose weight, you drop your calories. If you want a stronger heart and lungs, you go for a run or you swim or you cycle. If you want to get stronger, you lift weights or you lift your body weight and put progressive overload on the muscles. And it's choosing that, and it's having an understanding of the best tool for the job based on the time that you have.
Yeah, but the first one, or the first two of those, both result in muscular loss, in muscular wastage. So, which is something I hadn't realised. So, you know, when Rob told me that I was on my way to becoming more frail as I get old, as the decades continues to pass, that made me realise that no, I don't want to get weak and skinny and baggy and horrible as an older person. So I didn't. So I then started. I didn't quite move to the gym, but so I spent quite a few hours in the gym most days.
But that's also a thing, isn't it? Because at our age, you know, I mean, I'm 20 years younger than you, but for the last 14 years, my body would have been, if I wasn't lifting weights, it would lose 5% muscle mass every 10 years. And then that increases, doesn't it? So if you're not doing weights and going running to lose weight, you'll be accelerating that, even though you're trying to be fit. And then, like, you know, there's things like osteoporosis and stuff like that can start to happen from too much running. So that's why lifting weights, which some people are scared of, and not necessarily rightly so, but understandably, because, you know, it looks like a scary thing, but you can keep muscle mass, you can actually gain muscle mass when you're supposed to be losing it, and you increase your bone density. So all round, it just makes you more healthy, let alone, you know, it's not about building loads of muscle, it's just about being more healthy, which is what we're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, and now as a personal trainer, it's stunning the number of over 50-year-olds who just don't realise that. Who just think that all they need to do is running, all they need to do is, you know, run a marathon or do a triathlon, for example.
Exactly. That's why I like to try and get across fitness is great. There's no wrong with fitness. It's fantastic. However, if it's going to be at the cost of strength, there's a decision to be made now of, do you want that? Like you were told, do you want that? Do you want to be old and frail, or do you want to be old and strong? And it's like,
I think one of the magic things that you did was you used it right at the beginning of our conversation. You said you made a decision to move more. I mean, what we know is the actual activity that we do, it doesn't burn that many calories. And often, you know, you could probably consume 2 Jaffa cakes and that will cover all the calories that you'd burnt in a session quite easily. So you can undo, you know, you can make small intake of food and that would undo the calorie deficit that you may have thought you had from training. But you decided to move more frequently throughout your day. So before your early retirement, you were doing that 40 minutes before you went to work. But what kind of implications were beyond that? Did you start thinking about just like, I'm going to walk to the shops instead of getting in the car? And did you make kind of more decisions around kind of your spare time?
Yeah, especially once I'd taken early retirement and decided that I really wanted to spend more of my life in the fitness arena and eventually become a personal trainer and start a fitness consultancy business following on from that. And then I decided I want to get into the fitness modeling world and take to the stage. Having decided kind of all that stuff, it was natural for me, and I still do it now, to think of increasing movement wherever I can. I mean, you're dead right. People who go to exercise a lot, and we all exercise a lot, even though we think we exercise a lot, the calories we burn in that exercise is tiny compared to calories we burn just existing and just walking around the house and sleeping. Altogether, the non-exercise activity calories, the neat calories, if you know that term, those calories are far more than the calories you're likely to burn up in any exercise, unless you really are going to do a marathon run that's going to take all day long to do it. So just moving more means so much good. And one of the things that people say to me, and again, this is in the book, is oh, I haven't got time for exercise, and I've got two examples to say we haven't got time for better movement, if not exercise. Is that if you walk more quickly, I think the old word was briskly, but I don't think anybody says briskly anymore, do they? But if you walk more quickly and so walk briskly, if you walk say 30% quicker than you normally walk, wherever you're going, walk 30% quicker, you are going to burn approximately 30% more calories per hour, and you're going to get to where you're going a bit quicker as well. You're going to get there 30% quicker, so you have more time to do whatever it is you're going to do when you got there. So what do you mean you've got no time for exercise? Walk more quickly, you create time. And another example, just one more example on that, is the other, a few years ago now, I was getting the tube train in London, taking it to Marylebone, which is where I get my train home from these days. And I walked up the escalator. I always walk up tube station escalators now. And the idea of standing on an escalator as it conveys me up the top is horrendous to me now. But just as horrendous as walking up would have been 30 years ago. But because I decided to walk up the escalator, I actually got to the mainline station about a few seconds before if I'd ridden the escalator. But I managed to catch an earlier train home than the one I was aiming for, because the earlier train had been delayed. As a result, I got home half an hour earlier. So rather than waiting 29 minutes on Marylebone Station, I had to run to the platform, got a train half an hour earlier. And I wouldn't have done that had I not walked up that escalator. So walking up the escalator saved me half an hour of time. Walking 30% more quickly gets you somewhere 30% quicker. Think of ways you can save time by doing exercise.
It's like Interstellar, saving time travel.
Yeah, yes.
I think that's brilliant, because people might say, well, what is a brisk walk? And you go, like, I always use the example of just like, if you imagine you're late for the train and you're going to try and get there, that's how quick you're going to walk.
Yeah.
Because it's faster, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I use the example as well for people. I'll say, right, what's your commute? How long does it take you to drive home from work? And they'll go, oh, well, the traffic's a nightmare at 5 o'clock. So it takes me 20 minutes to get to the motorway or wherever. And then I can get on that and go home. And like, what's the traffic like at 5:30 or 5:45? And they'll be like, oh, there's nothing there. Right. So instead of taking an hour to get home, or an hour and a half or whatever, you can take 45 minutes to get home, but have 45 minutes of exercise before that as well. And it's all... Yeah. It changes the time, but it's the same amount of time. Yeah.
So then you started doing strength training. What approach did you follow?
I really followed the approach that Rob Riches told me, because I met Rob when I was gate crashing my wife's business trip to Los Angeles. So I was already in the post-retirement phase, or post-early retirement phase. So I had plenty of time. My wife had a business trip to LA, so I went over there for the same week. Obviously, it didn't cost me anything other than the flight, because we share a hotel room, being a married couple, of course. I went to the gym, and I knew there was a famous gym called Gold's Gym. It wasn't too far from our hotel. I went there, and I saw, it was probably the first time I ever saw any huge bodybuilders were down at Gold's Gym, and I thought, blimey, that's I don't know how any natural can be that shape. And I later realised, of course, that being natural's got very little to do with it for most of them anyway. While I was there, I only actually went to the gym to just do my morning cardio, just to do my normal pre-daytime cardio. And there's a big sign on the wall saying, "Are you interested in personal training?" I've never had a personal trainer. I've never spoken to any professional about fitness before in my entire life. So I said, "Yes, please, I'll do that." So the receptionist said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll hook you up with Rob, because he's just like you." So I thought, I don't want anybody who's just like me. I want somebody who's a bit fitter than me if he's going to try and teach me something. But yeah, I'll do that. So she hooked me up with Rob, and Rob was only just like me because he's also English and from Southeast England, and speaks with the same fairly boring home counties accents that I do. So that's why he's just like me. But Rob showed me for an hour. He was a guy who said, "This is great, you've lost all this weight, but it's terrible that you've lost a lot of muscle as well while losing all this great body fat." And he showed me some exercises to do, and I thought, this is good. We could work on making this into a program. And then looked at the weather forecast. It's going to rain the next day because yes, it does sometimes rain in Southern California. So Rob said, "You want to do another session tomorrow, and we'll have a lunch afterwards." So I said, "Let's do that." And the next day, Rob was going to do some video filming with his cameraman after lunch, but the cameraman cried off. So Rob says, "Can we spend most of the day together? You just pay for an hour's personal training, but you can be my cameraman for this afternoon." So I spent the whole day with Rob and learned so much. I mean, I wasn't a very good cameraman because I was being learning what he was saying. And while he was sticking to camera, I was learning myself rather than concentrating on the camera. So, and Rob and I worked on a program together, and the weights program I use to this day is based upon that. It's a body part split, and I call it the ABC7 system, which is not Rob's term, it's my fault. It is changed a bit. It's ABC7. It's ABC because the 5 workouts are A, B, C, D, and E. They all stand for something, and 7 because the number 7 keeps on coming up in it. So let's test you. What do you think the A, B, C, D, E stand for? A, B, C, fairly easy.
What are they? Are these body? Is it like a body part split?
Yeah, the body. Yeah, body part. It's a body part split.
Back.
So
chest.
Arms, correct.
Chest,
arms, back, chest,
diaphragm. Ears.
Deltoids for D.
Deltoids. James is beating you guys hands down here. Deltoids.
Hernia. Eye.
So what haven't we had so far? We haven't had legs. So legs is E. Unfortunately, legs doesn't begin with E. So I renamed legs elevators for my plan. So they elevate you from sitting down to standing up. So you've got arms, back, chest, delts, and elevators. So I do one of those every day, 5 days a week. And 7 exercises in each, and that's a plan that I use myself and I have done from that day to this.
What's really interesting, Chris, is that we've only got about 15 minutes, so I really want to kind of delve into this a little bit now, because most people have, who may even so lots of people will get this kind of, like you say, this kind of kick up the backside from a doctor or something, to say, look, you're not in a good shape, you could change, you're going to have problems potentially down the line. And we've already sort of said that there's a lot of people who will kind of ignore that, and there's a fairly small number of people who will do what you did and take some action. But then there's, I'd imagine, an absolutely minute number of people who will take what you did to the level that you've taken it to. Because I mean, Chris hasn't mentioned yet, but he's gone on to the bodybuilding stage as kind of like a physique competition, and you've been featured in TV programs and magazines and books and everything. So this and most of the people that we talk to, Chris, in this podcast, which is great to be speaking to you, are more approach training in a more, I hate the term, but in a more functional way. They're looking at movements and movement patterns and things like that. Whereas you've gone down a more bodybuilding kind of, like you say, body part split route, which is fantastic. And how did you go from this session with Rob to then having a program to actually, putting on your shorts and getting your fake tan on and standing on the stage? And I've seen the photos of you in amazing shape. What happened there?
Well, it's not a bodybuilding for me. It's what Americans call physique, or we call fitness modeling over here. So it's like bodybuilding but nicer. Is how I describe it. Bigger smiles and bigger trunks, I have to say, which is the best way of defining it, I think. And I suppose I got into it because Rob was into it. I mean, Rob was a world champion in a certain federation for it, and Rob said that I could do very well in this. He could see how enthusiastic I was about going to the gym, which I was. This wasn't on the first trip. This was a subsequent visit to LA when I wasn't gate crashing Jenny's business trip. I was having my own fitness-centered holiday in a little B&B around the corner from Gold's Gym with a couple of workout mates of mine. And Rob said, you could get on the stage, you could do well at this. And I thought, no chance. To start with, I'm 58 years old or something like that. And I couldn't take all the drugs and these. He said, no, go for fitness modeling, go for physique. There's no drugs involved. And they have age rated categories, so you could do quite well. So I thought I'd go. And Rob said, look, I'm appearing in a show in the UK in 2 months' time. Come and watch it and see what you think. So I did. It was in Farnborough. No, it wasn't. It was somewhere else, Tunbridge, I think. And I went, and it was good. And I thought, oh, I could do it. Be a laugh. Only once only. And now I've done it 10 times, and I've got a trophy full of trophy full of cabinets. I've got a cabinet full of trophies to show for it, and including being the world champion fitness model for the over 50s. That isn't as good as it sounds, because only 4 people entered. So, but I did beat the other 3.
The kind of 4 people that enter those things are pretty determined individuals, I suspect.
Yeah. So
I would say there's only 4 people who entered, because there's not that many people at that age who do that.
No, other people have got more sensible things to do with their lives, probably.
Well, the thing is, I remember when I spoke, or I've seen you say fairly recently, even maybe, that the category you go in is like the masters or whatever, and it's over 50s. But so you could be on stage with someone who's 50, 51, 52. But you're now, like you say, you're 64 now, aren't you? So
yes,
you can be a decade older than the people that you're stood next to. So with obviously what's been happening in the last sort of 12 plus months with lockdowns and all the rest of it, I mean, have you kind of retired now from competition, or are you looking to maybe, after this has all moved on, are you gonna go back on stage again?
Have I hung up my posing trunks for good, is what you're asking.
Yeah.
Well, except of course in the categories I do, it's usually not posing trunks, it's board shorts. But yeah, probably there's one more contest left in me, because the last contest I did was number 9, and I kind of think 10 would be a nice number to finish on. I did 5 contests in the UK organised by an organisation called Miami Pro, which you may have heard of, and 3 by an organisation called Pure Elite. They're broadly similar. There's some differences between them. I did one in the US, because Rob said, come to the US and have one to go over here. There's a Mr. Muscle Beach contest, which I did. It was actually at the Muscle Beach open air gym. If everybody's been there, there's some sort of banked seating around there, which people sit and watch. Well, that was great fun. And I came 5th in the over 35s, would you believe? And I was 61 at the time. And there were only 7.
That must have put a few people's noses out of joint. They'd be like, "Oh,
yeah, there are only 7 people in it, but I did come 5, and the first 5 get trophies, so that's all right for me. So, yeah. And I might give that another go. I was going to do it in April last year, but of course that was all cancelled. So I might do it again, but they're not. I'm getting a bit long in the tooth for most things.
So who do you work with at the moment? What kind of people? You says you're now a personal trainer. So who are the people that you work with? Is it one-to-one? Is it online? How do people?
I do online, and I do one-to-one. I don't particularly enjoy group classes. So I actually enjoy getting to know people more deeply than you can find in group classes, and understand them more closely. And all of my clients, I'm not the cheapest personal trainer out there, but I just specialise in people over 50. And for those people over 50, I give them a very good, I think, a very good value for money service, because for example, I measure them all again on using the body composition analysis scales, and I track that on a graph. So they get Excel spreadsheets. I told you I was Mr. Excel. They get Excel spreadsheets with their graphing their progress, both on their gym performance and their cardio performance if they're doing that, depending on what they want to do, of course. And they certainly get a little graph of body fat amounts, and they can see that progressing over time. And most people, when they get to my age, one thing I've discovered about being a PT to people over 50 is they don't need to be quite so entertained as the youngsters do. So if you're a PT at trying to or working with clients who is 25 years old, he's not going to say, "Oh, we did those exercises last week. Let's do something different this week." And most of my clients do the same exercises week in, week out for months on end. But each time we increment the weights. For example, if we're doing anything that's like a weight resistance exercise, then this comes straight from my own ABC7 system. We do a set of 10 at a certain weight. Then if they do that in good form and without failing, obviously assume we do that, then we do a set of 10 at the next increment up, whether it's the next dumbbell up or the next peg on the weight stack. And if they do a second set, fine, then we do up again, do a third set of 10. So that's 3 sets of 10. If they've done all 3 sets in good form, without cheating, without involving body parts not meant to, all the ways of doing an exercise correctly and incorrectly. If they've done that, then next week we do another 3 sets, but we start at what was the middle weight this time. So if they've done weights A, B, and C today, then next week we'll do weights B, C, and D. And so we'll increment in that way, because I'm a massive fan a massive believer of incremental progressive overload as the way that muscles respond and muscles grow, with that as the stimulus. Obviously they need other stimulus, they need food stimulus, they need rest stimulus, but in terms of the exercise or the movement stimulus, then IPO is the way to go, and just gradually moving up by the smallest increment possible, and then overlapping by 2 sets seems to work well. And I do think that people, any clients like in their 20s will get really bored with that as an approach. But clients over 50 love it, especially when I generate them Excel graphs showing their performance and so on like that. And,
the thing is about a lot of people in their 20s, they're not as fit as you think that they think they are, because they don't follow these principles. And you know what? There's nothing more entertaining than a result. And if you have a random set of variables, you're going to get a random output.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you want entertainment, you just go to cinema. And that's what James does every day. With his infinite.
Yeah, because
James is usually on the screen. It's not sitting watching the screen. He's on the screen.
Well, I know he's on radio now. He's on all kinds of.
That's because, but we I mean, I've seen Pete's talked about it. Paul's talked about it. I talk about it. We have guests who talk about it. Training to be effective is not necessarily entertaining. You know, it's doing the same movements, like you said. Your A, B, C, D, E. You've been doing the same structure for years, because when you find something that works, you just do it and you replicate it and you continue doing it and you do it consistently.
Yeah.
If you look at some of the old-time strongmen, right? I can't remember which one it was, because there's like,
you're talking about
all the normal guys from that. But
you're talking about me again, Pete. I can tell. They're talking about me again. I can tell.
Yeah. No. I mean, proper old time from like 100 years ago, not like people in the 60s. But you look at them and they say, most of them guys like were at the strongest in their like 40s, mid 40s, because they started when they were younger and just trained every day with progressive overload for 30 years. And then they're like, and now I'm strong. It's not like they're in the 20s and they go, I'm fit. It's like, no, I've got another 20 years and then I'll be at my peak.
Well, it's like my grandparents, they lived till 90 odd, 95, 96. And when you looked at their diet, it was literally meat and 2 veg. Yeah. There was gravy there and there was the odd dessert, but really there was none of this kind of just infinite variety and entertainment. I mean, I was talking to a client recently and they were saying, the reason I lose track on my diet is I just get bored. And I mean, you were doing 1,600 calories for years. How did you not get bored? What are you telling yourself? Because this is the thing. So what is the narrative going through your head?
I think it was really, as I was saying earlier on, it's the fact that I could see it it was having results. I was making a success of it. I could see my weight coming down. I could see eventually my body fat percentage coming down as well. And I could see my strength going up as well, because by the time I'd moved into looking in the weights room in the gym as well, and following this ABCDE principle of a body part split with incremental progressive overload, moving up the weights by the smallest possible increment, I could see myself making gains. I still do it. You see me in the gym. I don't believe in having a phone in the gym. I've seen far too many phones broken in the gym or forgotten or trodden on. So I don't take a phone. I take a good old-fashioned clipboard and a good old-fashioned printed spreadsheet, and I write down some numbers, and I have a column per day. So a separate spreadsheet for each of my 5 different workouts. So if it's an arms day, I take the A sheet and fill the numbers, and when all the columns are full, then I copy the final column across to the first column of the next edition of that sheet. It's very, very low tech, but it works, and clients seem to like that approach as well.
Yeah, I think if you can show and demonstrate improvement and there's so many ways to demonstrate improvement, isn't there? It is not necessarily just, the load going, the weight going up that you use. It could be, that you're using the same weight, but with better form, that you're doing more sets, that you're doing more reps, that you're having less rest, that you're, there's so many different ways. And if you've got all this data that you're obviously tracking and recording so diligently, you can show people their progress, obviously, and then you've got their body weight and their body fat percentage and composition changing. And like you say, I think, as Paul said, results are incredibly entertaining. And once you actually start getting results, that's the kind of the momentum and the impetus to continue.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what we may have to do, Chris, is if possible, if you're happy to, another day, we might need to get you back on to actually talk more we've kind of got a nice background story as to where you got to, but I'd really love to talk to you more about your system of training and what you did yourself. And especially even down to things like, I know there's very, very specific kind of dieting and things that you would have done to get yourself, stage ready and ready for so it'd be great to get you back on and have more of a conversation around the kind of the more detail around that, if that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely love to. And if you, my darling listener, can't be bothered to wait until that, then you can always buy a copy of my book.
What I'll do is, I do have a copy of Chris's book here. So Fat to Fit at 50, and it's kind of a 2-part book. The first, and I really liked it, the first half of the book is kind of his story. And then the second half of the book is, I think it's even your story. So it's kind of telling you what Chris did. And then it's also laying out the plan for, the processes and the systems and the programming, how he did it, so that you can then take that forward and learn yourself. It's been fantastic talking to you, Chris. It really has. Pete, do you have anything you'd like to say to Chris before we leave him? I know we will see him again, so this is a ta-ra for now rather than a goodbye, I think.
Absolutely. I was just thinking that. I was like, because I saw we were coming up to the time, and I was like, we need to get him back on. But it's been lovely to meet you. And you're right. If you can do it, from your story, from what you've just told us, if you can do it, anyone can do it.
And what's it say on the bottom? What's it say on the bottom of the front of my book?
Exactly.
I did it. You can too.
Yeah. I saw that, and it's great. And what you've also done is reminded me that topic solution. I need to get one. A hazelnut in every bite. There you go. I need to get a topic for years. I didn't even know you could still get them.
So if anybody needs to or would like to find out a little bit more about me, probably the best place is on my website, which is the 2 or 3 that leads to the same place, chriszaremba.com, Chris and then ZAREMBA.com, chriszaremba.com, mm-hmm. Or easy as probably fitnessover50.co.uk.
Well, I've just Googled you, and it's easy.
If you Google my name, I'm the first 1,000 that come up.
There's pictures of you in competitions. I've just done it, and it's
Great, thanks guys. Thanks so much.
Paul, would you like to say anything before we wrap up?
It's great conversation. Lovely to hear how you kind of made that switch. Because it's one of the big things that I always try and work with clients is how someone makes that decision to change. And because it can sometimes seem like such a mountain to climb.
Yeah.
Particularly if you have particularly if you've not moved for years. I mean, some people, like you say, have had athletic pasts and then life's got in the way and they put weight on, but other people have never been to the gym. But I think you came in with quite an open mind, and I think that's really important. You didn't come in. You obviously had hesitations at times when you went to your first gym and you saw loads of fit people, but you overcame that by having an open mind and listening to people, and then took the personal responsibility to do it. So it's lovely to hear this story, and I think it's going to be so relevant to everyone who's listening to this podcast.
That's brilliant.
Thanks. And also, just to remind you to like, follow, subscribe, review us. And then also, if you'd like to join the Facebook group Health Oddity, you can find that as well. There will be in the notes on this post, you'll be able to find links to Chris Zaremba's websites. And also, I follow Chris on Instagram as well. He's on Instagram. He's easy to find on there. You just tap in Chris Zaremba. And also, I recommend getting his book. You can literally buy it on Amazon, and I ordered it, and I think I had it 2 days later. So it's really, really good. And I'm just starting it, but I've really liked the start of it. And I do know Chris's story already. So, and it's great to speak to him. So we will get Chris back on again, guys, to tell us more about the kind of the second part of his journey into the kind of the elite levels of competition that he went to. But Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. And it was lovely catching up with you, and I will speak to you again soon. Yeah.
It's certainly indeed. Thank you so much for having me, and it's great meeting you guys.
Brilliant. Cool, guys. Thank you very much. We will meet you again next week on the Health Oddity podcast for episode 43. Take care. Remember, join us on the Facebook group if you'd like to, so you can interact with us more, and we will catch up with you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Oddity.